float, laminated, low E, tinted, double glazed, argon filled, triple glazed. Why is choosing window glazing so hard? Hi everyone, if you're thinking of building or renovating, then this is the place to be. I am Nikki and tonight I will be talking all things glazing. There are so many different types of glass and window arrangements, it honestly can be seriously overwhelming even for the professionals. Normally in these videos I take the most common types of whatever I'm talking about that are available in Australia, and then I'll compare them based on cost or sustainability, energy efficiency, all those sorts of things. But I think choosing glazing is a little bit like watching The Matrix for the first time. Just when you think you've got it all figured out, then something new happens and none of it makes sense anymore. So tonight I will be going through what information you need to look out for, where to find it, and a step-by-step example in the hopes that you'll be armed with enough information to choose what is best for you. Is it the red or the blue? The most important factor when choosing your glazing is definitely energy efficiency. If you don't get this right, you might not get the star rating you need to comply with the NCC energy efficiency rating. And this means you won't get your building permit. Now, the energy efficiency rules for each state or territory are slightly different. So if you want to know more about that, especially the new rules that have just come in, please check out other videos. Links are in the description. But ultimately, your designer, certifier, or energy consultant should be able to tell you the requirements that you need to get. But if you are viewing this video and choosing everything before you get a designer on board, or you're choosing a new home, then your first step is working out your climate zone and what is best suited for that zone. One of the best ways to do this is by using the Australian Glass and Window Association fact sheets that are specific for your region. And they look a little something like this. In these fact sheets, there are two main characteristics you need to pay specific attention to. One is the SHGC, or solar heat gain coefficient, and the other one is the U-value. I will explain why these are so important in a moment. And depending on your climate zone, you might want to also look at considerations and cost savings in these fact sheets. SHGC, or the solar heat gain coefficient, is basically how easy it is for heat to transfer through the glazing. It is super technical. I'm not going to get into all of the ins and outs of it so you don't fall asleep, but basically the lower the solar heat gain coefficient number, the less heat gets inside your house. In climate zones 1, 2 and 3, which is the top end and central part of Australia, this is Darwin, Cairns, Broome, Brisbane, Alice, and kind of everywhere in between where it gets really, really hot. You want this value low because you want to keep out as much heat as possible. But in climate zones 6, 7 and 8, which is most of Victoria, the ACT, Tassie, southern parts of New South Wales and WA, you might want a higher value, especially on the northern windows of the house, to let in more heat during winter. But in these climate zones, you might want lower solar heat gain on other areas of the wall, maybe the east or the west. So that would be where you could have glazing with a lower solar heat gain coefficient. But if you are going to do that, pay attention to the angles of the sun where you are. If you don't know how to find that information, I have done another video on that. Basically, if you were in the southern part of Australia, it's more likely to be a bigger angle between the seasons than it is if you're in the upper part of Australia. But if you do live in climate zone 6, 7 or 8 and you want to have a glazing system with a higher solar heat gain coefficient, then I suggest you go with a window that is higher up and more landscape so that you can shade it during the summer, and then as the angles of the sun change during winter and become lower, then you'll get all of that heat in during winter, which is where you want it. Also consider season-specific physical shade devices, either externally or internally. Did we shatter your expectations? If so, please click that like button. Cheers. The U value relates to the whole unit, be it a window or a door. It includes the frames, seals, glazing, spaces, air gaps, all that sort of stuff. It is about the non-solar heat gain or loss through the window unit. So essentially, how good of an insulator is it? Now this is a really important part of sealing the building, especially if you're using active heating or cooling systems. This is because the more insulated your building, the less air escaping, the less work your heater or air conditioner has to do to maintain the temperature of your home. Makes sense. And of course, the less that your appliances have to work in keeping this temperature maintained, the more money you save. The lower the U value, the better the insulation. Now typically you would want this as low as possible for all areas of Australia, unless you are designing a passive only building without any air conditioning or any heating at all. This is not particularly common, and in any case, if you wanted to do that, you would definitely have to employ a specialized consultant on board, be it a building designer, architect, or someone who just deals in energy efficiency of the home. Visible light transmittance isn't really about the energy efficiency, but it is something you might want to consider depending on what your preferences are. It is effectively how much visible daylight comes through a window. The higher this number, the more light that gets through. Now this is different to the amount of heat coming through the window. UV or ultraviolet light is a shorter wavelength with typically higher radiation intensity than red or orange areas of the visible light spectrum, which basically means blue light and UV light is hotter than red or orange light. If you have an air-conditioned space and you want less heat entering the building, but you still want to have it a light and bright space, then look for windows with a low U value, low solar heat gain coefficient, and a high transmittance value. Now, if you've ever been fishing or skiing in the middle of a really bright sunny day, then the glare from the water or the snow reflecting back at you when you're not wearing sunglasses, you know how much glare sucks. It is so bad. It is the same thing in buildings. In fact, Frank Gehry had a building glare problem. It was a big, huge controversy in the Disney Hall. I'm not going to talk about that anymore, but Google it and just find out what happened there, because that was quite interesting. Anyway, for the most part, if you have decent eaves and appropriate orientation, then it's okay. But beware, if you want big glazed doors or windows really close to either a pool, a water feature, or a large exposed pave area, then you might have some issues. If you are sitting in the pool, there might be glare coming from the window or door and reflecting back at you while you're in the pool, or you might get the glare from the pool or paved surface reflecting back up into your home. Now I hear you all saying, that's great, awesome information, but how do I actually choose what I need? Well, this database compares the performance of heaps of different windows on the market. I'm going to use this as a starting point, just as an example. You can use this as well, it's publicly available, but I suggest you look at what is available locally first. The last thing you want to do is go through this whole process and realize that what you want is not available, or it's going to be shipped halfway across the country and you're going to pay a fortune in freight. So for this example, we're going to look at climate zones 1, 2, or 3. And as you can see in the fact sheet, it says we want a low U value, a low solar heat gain coefficient, and for personal preference, we'll go with like a medium to high transmittance. I do have some friends that are vampires that like dark and cozy environments, but our household loves light and bright light. So we're going to go with as high a transmittance as we can without compromising our energy efficiency. So in this database, I have just chosen a few options to show you the difference. This one here is a residential series of 502-504 single glazed sliding window. The glass is a 6.38mm Comfort Plus Grey, which is a laminated low E glass. It has a U value of 4.5, a solar heat gain of 0.43 and a transmittance of 0.33. So looking at the same manufacturer, let's change this to a double glazed window and see what we get. So this one here is an Architectural Series 462 sliding double glazed. These are all sliding, by the way. The glass is 5mm clear with an 8mm air gap and 5mm clear on the other side. Its U value is 4.7, solar heat gain of 0.46 and transmittance of 4.8. This does have a better transmittance than the single glazed, but the U values and the solar heat gain is worse. Let's check out another one. This is a double glazing designer series. It has 4mm glass, 10mm air gap this time, and a 4mm clear glass on the other side. So it has smaller glass with a bigger air gap. Here we have a U value of 4.6, solar heat gain of 0.49, and a transmittance of 0.49. So the insulation is better than the other double glazed window, but the heat gain is worse. And both of these values are still higher than the single glazed window in the first example. This is because of the different combinations of glass, air gap, and frame. So if we have a look at the specifications for our first window, the single glazed window, and we choose the same frame, just double glazed, let's see what we've got. So if we have 5mm clear glass, 8mm air gap, and a 5mm clear glass on the other side, there's a U value of 4.3, solar heat gain of 0.57, and transmittance of 0.61. Here, the double glazing has better insulation, but it's actually worse heat gain than the single glazing. But it lets more light in. So if you had better sun shading with air conditioning and wanted a brighter space, then double glazing would work great here. But if you didn't want to rely on air conditioning and didn't mind a darker space, then single glaze would be better. Go figure. So why am I showing you this? Well, if you learn one thing from today's video, just one, make sure it's this. Double glazing isn't necessarily the best. Always check the numbers just to make sure. The last thing you want to be doing is paying for something that's not actually performing. If you are near a motorway or a big industrial area where there might be lots of noise, then noise reduction or acoustic glass might be a great option. Another factor to consider is safety and security, because different glazing breaks differently. Laminated glass tends to be more resistant to attack. So if there's a film or something on your glass, then it's likely to perform better from a security standpoint. And obviously there are other ones like obscure glass and decorative glass because it's pretty. And as I briefly mentioned before, external shades and internal furnishings can also assist. And next month's video, we'll be going all over those. So if you don't want to miss out on that one, hit subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found that helpful. I am Nikki, CEO and founder of Totally Wicked Group. Hope you have a totally wicked evening.